Insurance and the natural hazard. Natural hazards like floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, windstorm, and hailstorm cause considerable property damage in various parts of the world. In the United States, average annual damage resulting from this hazard is increasing rapidly. A large percentage of the damage occurs as a result of infrequent but severe geophysical events, individual storms, or earthquakes. If aggregate damage resulting from the event is exceptionally large, the event is called a natural disaster. The number of natural disasters in the United States is increasing each year. Resultant property losses are increasing even more rapidly. Increased density of properties susceptible to damage, increased value of these properties, and increased cost of repair have raised the probability of natural disaster occurrence in recent years, even though the magnitude and character of the natural hazard haven't changed. Insurance is one means of protection against the natural hazard for fixed property. In this report, 1 to 4 family dwelling structures represent fixed property. To provide protection, two components of risk must be evaluated. First, risk per individual structure, and second, risk of a large number of simultaneous losses, catastrophe potential. The latter component has attained added importance recently with the increased number and magnitude of natural disasters. Information available for risk evaluation is first, past damage experience, second, data on the damage susceptibility of structures to be insured and the cost of repair, and third, knowledge of physical characteristic of the natural hazard from the natural sciences. Damage experience results from the interaction of a natural hazard, frequency, location, and severity of a geophysical event like storm, earthquake, or flood within characteristic and geographical distribution of exposed properties. Occasionally, interaction between the geophysical event and distribution of properties lead to the creation of catastrophic losses resulting in a natural disaster. Evaluation of risk must be based either upon a retrospective or prospective measure of this damage experience. Past damage experience, a retrospective measure of loss potential, is a poor measure of future risk because of non-stationarity of property characteristic, bias introduced by chance interaction of hazard and property array, and by random occurrence or non-occurrence of a severe geophysical event during the short sampling period of years that is usually available for study. A pure extrapolation into the future of past loss experience, including the chance combination of events that led to the past natural disaster, doesn't provide a great amount of insight into the character of future risks. What is needed is an actual damage that occurred as a result of past geophysical event, but damage resulting to the present distribution of properties from a recurrence of this past event. For example, to estimate future earthquake risk in California, emphasis should not be on what the 1906 San Francisco earthquake cost, but what it would cost if a comparable earthquake occurred today and affected the present type, distribution, and value of properties. A supplementary approach to the use of loss experience, called natural hazard simulation, is presented, which provides a prospective measure of risk. A mathematical approximation of the natural hazard mechanism is constructed, which artificially produces geophysical events that mathematically interact with a given geographical array of properties. Natural hazard simulation utilizes and ties together available pertinent information. Use of an electronic computer permits calculation of large number of, say, 25-year sequence of synthetic loss experience, which can be used to estimate the two measures of natural hazard risk. Natural disasters occur at irregular intervals in the simulation analysis when a severe geophysical event occurs near a center of population. Using this approach, effect of a recurrence of past geophysical event or simulated future events upon present or hypothetical future distribution and types of properties can be estimated. It produces in effect a weighted measure of the many possible interactions between natural hazard and property array which, because of his short lifespan, man cannot afford to wait for nature to produce. Characteristic of an insurance operation needed to cover the hazard, rating, underwriting, claim settlement, loss reserving, and reinsurance also are simulated. Example of the application of natural hazard simulation to flood, earthquake, hurricane, wind and tides, winter windstorm, and thunderstorm spawn hazard, such as tornadoes, wind and hail hazard are presented. Purpose of the application to flood hazard was to estimate magnitude of the hazard to more than 50 million dwelling structures in the United States for which very little damage experience was available and determine characteristic of a joint insurance industry or federal government flood insurance program need to cover the hazard. Characteristics of a joint program were needed to establish relationship and financial arrangement between the federal government and the insurance industry. This work was done as consultant to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development during development of a national flood insurance program, which is now operational. In this plan, the federal government assumed a portion of risk by acting as a reinsurer against excessive losses on industry's share of the program. An application of natural hazard simulation to the earthquake hazard on the west coast of the United States has been made. Examples of mathematically produced earthshock patterns are given. Correspondence between calculated and observed pattern is good. Measures of both components of risk are discussed for the present array of 625,000 dwellings in the San Francisco's metropolitan area. When a recurrence of all earthquakes in the historical past is used as a measure of earthquake hazard. A similar type of analysis also has been made for the Los Angeles metropolitan area. An application of the approach to the hurricane wind hazard is illustrated using computer printouts of the geographical patterns of the highest wind expected during a hurricane's passage as obtained for the computerized mathematical model. Calculated patterns of wind speed severity provide a realistic approximation of observed patterns. An example of the interaction between natural hazard and property array in producing a natural disaster is illustrated by calculating loss experience to dwelling properties in Louisiana from an intense hurricane whose path is successively changed relative to centers of population. The effect of changing the intensity of the hurricane upon resulting damage when the path is held constant is also shown. Both measures of hurricane wind risk, expected loss per exposure, and catastrophe potential are being estimated by developing loss experience to the present array of dwelling properties in the Gulf and Atlantic state based upon two measures of the magnitude of the hurricane wind hazard, namely a recurrence of hurricane of various interested and paths which have been recorded in the historical past, and a number of series of 25-year sequence of synthetic loss experience based upon computer simulation technique. Thank you.